All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Jason Henneberry. Jason, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Good to be here, Kevin. Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
You bet. I'll tell you, after our last conversation, I've been really looking forward to this. And before we get into anything, I just want to start off by giving a shout out to Brianna and Kennedy, the whole team over at Interview Valet. And Brianna and Luz are kind of my two front people that I'm always in communication with. But I'll tell you, Jason, they have sent me some absolutely amazing guests for this podcast over the last few years. And now every time I get an email from Brianna, it's kind of like Christmas time. It's like, I don't know exactly what's going to be in here, but I do know it's going to be good, you know?
Well, I will do my best to make sure that this isn't the first time they don't hit the mark. So, but I agree,
Well,
they're fantastic. They've got me introduced to some fantastic podcasts. So I tend to agree with you.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll just kick off our conversation. I'll start with a nice, simple, easy question to get us started, and then we'll dig in deeper. What do you do, Jason, and who do you serve?
Sure. Okay, that sounds great. So I grew up in the mortgage finance business. I'm up in Canada, and we have a national mortgage brokerage from coast to coast with about 600 mortgage agents that
Okay.
operate in our business. That's the main business. I got a whole bunch of ancillary services around that. We do have a coaching platform for sales and marketing, and then we have some SaaS services that we do to support, operational processes and stuff like that. So some of those things I do for the people in our company, and the rest I offer those services to the industry at large. And it really helps as a way to get to know everybody in the industry and recruit people into our business when it's appropriate.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, um, h- I'm curious, how did you get into this? Because I always think back, to when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a fireman. And so I don't know if when you were a kid, you thought about I want to do the work I'm now doing, but maybe not. So how did this come to
It's
be? What is?
funny. It's funny that you said that. So no one wakes up and says, I want to be a mortgage broker. Like that doesn't happen. When you ask most mortgage brokers, it's usually like my first choice didn't work out, so I did this instead.
Uh,
However, I am a second generation mortgage broker. So,
wow. Okay.
I was a kid watching my dad do this.
Wow.
And so I guess there's maybe a part of me deep in the recesses of my mind that said, this is what I'm going to end up doing.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Uh,
So how did it happen? I mean, so what was your path? I mean, did you go to college after high school
I
or?
did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a BCom degree. Thought that I would end up working in commercial banking. I tried working in the bank environment for a little bit after college, university, and just it wasn't for me. I realized pretty early on that I was destined to be self-employed. And it's funny that that actual environment is where I met someone who pulled me out of the banking system to say, hey, if you came and worked for me, you'd only have to do mortgages. You wouldn't have to open up bank accounts and do all this other stuff that you're doing, and you'd have an easier life. So I
Wow.
believed him, and I went down that path. Turns out no path is easy, Kevin.
Well,
But
I'll agree with you there. I'll agree
yeah.
with you there. But I'll tell you, like you, I'd much rather have the path of the entrepreneur than working for somebody else because I found that I spent 7 years or excuse me 4 years in the army, then in the next 7 years working as a commercial fisherman on Alaska's Bering Sea, so that I could save up money to start my own business. That was my whole reason for going to Alaska,
Cool.
and since 1995, I've been an entrepreneur ever since, and I couldn't imagine working for somebody else again.
Yeah,
It's
from where I'm sitting today, I'm the same way. Like I look back and I'm like, of course, why did I even bother trying at the bank? But at the time, I really felt like I was going to be a corporate person,
yeah,
and I actually couldn't get I couldn't get any interviews to get the next promotion or the next opportunity. And I guess everybody that I applied with or I talked to, they saw something in me that I didn't even know existed in myself. I really wasn't a corporate person. But
yeah,
you can see it in retrospect, and in the moment, it's a big leap of faith to go from
totally.
that to okay, I'm going to go do my own thing.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
now it's all dependent on you. It's so
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, so what inspires you most about the work you get to do and the impact you get to make, Jason?
I like the creative process of coming up
Okay.
with new ideas. I really do. So I mentioned earlier I have a few other things that I do around
Yeah.
our core business, and it's not because I have to do those things. The core business is a pretty substantial business, and it keeps me pretty busy. But that's where I find I get to explore my creative side, coming up with new projects, new ventures. And so I've probably got 20 or 30 things that I've tried over the years, and some have worked. We've had some exits along the way, just small stuff, but really fulfilling. And it's been great. So I don't see a world where I stop kind of tinkering or exploring. And how do you make the main business even that much more efficient or that much better?
Yeah.
And a lot of that for me starts with just testing the market. So
Yeah.
oftentimes I'll come up with an idea, and before we even introduce it internally to our own company, I'll just throw it out there to the world and see if it resonates, if it
See if it,
lands.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great way to explore ideas, and it's also a great way to pay for ideas. So when you own a company, you're like, okay, I want to do this for my people. Oftentimes, it's a huge investment, time, energy, brain power. You don't even know if it's going to land. But when you do it externally, you can put a price point on it, and you can say, hey, this is what we're doing. It's $50 a month, $99 a month, whatever it is,
Yep.
and you can actually test real market demand
Yep.
for it. And then if it that can often be a good way to get a project off the ground, test market viability, generate some revenue to pay for the development, and then you have something better that you can bring home. And so that's sort of been my process. I love that. So that's where I spend a lot of my creative juices.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. And that is such the life of an entrepreneur is, especially once we start getting some traction going in the direction that we're going and stuff. Now it's just how do we become most effective? How do we just continue, just finding that the little nuances and making those little discoveries that just allow us to make a much bigger impact as we just continue moving forward and stuff.
Yeah, totally
And
agree.
I love that whole discovery process and just trying stuff out and just experimenting and just seeing what happens.
Yeah, you
And
got to make sure you don't keep chasing shiny objects. Like you
totally.
got to protect the core.
Oh, you
So
bet.
I actually have a process around that, and it's not even my process, but I read it in a book some time ago. But if you've got your main business that's feeding you, and it gives you the space that allows you that creativity. A lot of entrepreneurs we get squirrely. We're like, okay, I'm gonna
Yeah,
I'm gonna go and do something else now, even though you've got this good thing going on. And so the process is sort of the idea is protect the core, test a few things. So I'll often have two or three projects on the go that are like new ideas testing, and then if something works, I'll like ditch two. I'll go deep on the thing that's working, and I'll figure out how to build it up enough so that I can actually become part of the core. Really put a lot of effort into that. And then I'll find that I'm looking to kind of explore something new again, and so you test a couple of other ideas and you just sort of repeat that process, but do it in a way that you don't blow yourself up,
yeah, yeah.
and you don't neglect the main business. So
Amen.
anything I
Absolutely.
touch, it's kind of like, could this potentially become part of the main business? And if I
Yes.
can't say yes to a few questions, I just won't touch it at all. So
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm 100% with you. I want, the stuff that I'm testing to just really, I want it to better and improve what I'm already doing. I want to become more effective in what we're already doing.
Yeah, and then you get you get that I'm not even sure you get a leverage effect off it. So
Yeah.
any time you put into new project, if it works out, then it's time invested that enhances the other. So you just get a multiplier effect on your time as opposed to sort of diffusing your time and then not doing anything well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's an example of a result? And you can name names here, or you don't have to name names, is what I meant. You can if you want, totally your call. But what's an
Sure.
example of a result that you guys have helped a client get that you're just incredibly proud of, Jason?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned my coaching group earlier, and one of the things we do, so in the mortgage industry, we tend to be very focused on, the transaction at hand. Maybe people are buying a home, or they're renewing or refinancing their mortgage, and it's a very transactional type experience with,
Okay.
mortgage rate, payments, what you would expect.
Mhm.
And but there's a lot of cool financial strategies that you can layer onto mortgages. They're really it's the biggest single financial transaction that most people have in their
Yep.
financial portfolio.
Yep.
And so if you there's things that you can do to sort of link it up with the accounting and the tax planning and the financial planning, the wealth planning, the estate planning. And there's all kinds of really cool things you can do with mortgages without getting into it. I think the biggest impact that I've had probably on the mortgage industry or some of the people around me is just in helping other mortgage professionals see those opportunities through our coaching platform and then watching them execute where we're not even involved in the transaction side of things. We're just actually just helping them find a new way to grow and build their business and support their clients is a really rewarding process.
Wow, very cool, very cool. So yeah, you're not there on site with them or anything like that. You're just showing them how to do this stuff, and then you just watch. You get to kind of watch them implement, and then you kind
Yeah.
of help them out, and they got questions. You answer questions around it, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set, I want to switch gears just a little bit. I want to start talking about the relationship side of this. So, Jason, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, sure, I can. We're in the mortgage business. I told you we have a company with 600 agents. We are very much a relationship-based business. None
Okay.
of this works without relationships. I
Wow.
mentioned earlier when I worked in the branch, it's funny that you asked that question. I worked in the bank branch system, and there was a gentleman who pulled me out of that and said, "Hey, come work for me and do mortgages." Well, that was in 2003, I think. It might have been
Okay.
2004. So we're talking like 22, 23 years ago.
Yep.
That person I've worked with them ever since that moment. I worked under them and then beside them, and now so this company that we have it together, and he sits as chairman of the board of the company. It's no
Oh,
longer operational, but big influence, big impact on my life. And now almost 25 years later, we still work together, and we've grown the business from those early seeds to what it is today.
yeah.
So that's just one example of a relationship that, without that moment where he pulled me out of the bank branch, none of what I'm doing today would be possible, and we
Yeah.
certainly wouldn't be working together 25 years later. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So now I've got a question I want to ask that I have never ever asked this question before, and because I've never had and this is totally self-serving too. I'm just curious. So you got into this in 2003.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you going through 2007, 2008, 2009? Talk about your experiences through that time because a lot of stuff happened in the mortgage industry in those
Okay,
years.
yeah. So, well, 2006, 7, and the early part of 2008 were like amazing stratospheric moments in our career. It was when the mortgage market was really peaking. But then after August or September 2008, things took a bit of a turn. We all know. So the next couple of years after that sort of petered along. It was a little tough, but I'll tell you, we had a really good program in 06, 07, and into 08 where we would, getting back to the financial strategy stuff that I coach brokers on today. That's actually at the time I was the mortgage broker. I didn't have this platform. And so I was drumming up business, and we did consumer seminars or homeowner seminars to teach people some of these financial strategies. And we put 20,000 homeowners through 300 seminars over the course of a 2-year period
Wow.
across the country. And it was a machine. We did radio, bus ads, flyers. We were dropping 600,000 flyers a quarter, getting, 100 people into a Thursday night seminar and we took $1 billion worth of mortgage apps over that period of time. It was really, really cool. And in September of 2008, um, we the world changed and the market shifted, and nobody wanted to come to our seminars anymore. It was a big moment for me because I had spent a year and a half or 2 years really perfecting all our marketing processes, dialing in everything. And we were right at that inflection point where all the hard work was about to pay off and we were going to scale dramatically in '08, '09, and 10. I had a big plan. And I basically blew myself out of the water because when you're spending money on radio and TV ads and bus ads and flyers, the most expensive line item in the books is your marketing.
Yeah.
But with all of those things, if you make a big commitment in advance, like if you buy 6 months or 12 months worth of radio, you get like 50, 60, 70% off the radio instead of buying like 30-second slots at a time.
Uh-huh.
So I wrote the check for the next 12 months of marketing in August of 2008.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
then on September 14th, the bottom fell out of the market. And I had 45 seminars planned between September and December, and zero. Nobody showed up.
Wow.
And it was a complete reset. I basically bankrupted myself. We didn't quite get that bad, but I had to sell. I had a bunch of real estate. I had a house with an ocean view. I was young too. I was like 30 years old. I'd done pretty well early in my career. We had 3 kids, young babies, like everything was going well, and all of a sudden it came to a dead stop. And I'd burned all my cash in one moment and had to completely restructure the business, sell everything, and start over. So it was if you had asked me that question in 2009, I would have cried, but it's been a long time since then.
Yeah.
So we've rebuilt, but that was a difficult couple of years,
You
let me tell you.
bet. You
Yeah.
bet. Yeah. Wow. And I want to make sure like, if there's any other relationships that you want to honor, I want to make sure I want to give you the opportunity to do that. So,
Yeah, sure. I mean, I had a different business partner at the time with all those seminars, and he really taught me how to grow a business and how to operationalize a business. So, it's not all bad. We
yep.
came out the other end a lot smarter. And then we applied that knowledge into building, Tango, which is what we have today.
Okay.
And that worked out. And it was probably around 2016. I met a gentleman who was more involved in the capital markets, and he really showed me how to raise capital and do some pretty cool stuff. And what we did is that's the moment that we formed Tango, and we raised a bunch of capital, and then we went and bought a bunch of our business was doing well by then. We'd fully recovered from 2008 and 9 and 10. But we ended up buying a bunch of big brokerages all across the country, and that's how we that was basically the moment that we formed the version of the business that we have today.
Okay.
And man, I learned a lot through that, and I wouldn't have had the ability or the knowledge to bring in all the investors, and that capital base that would have allowed us to scale so quickly. So we bought up about 2% of the Canadian mortgage market in about a 12-month period of time. And
Wow.
then, that put us down a different path, and some bumps in the road there too, but it's led us to where we are today, and I feel pretty fortunate for that moment.
Yeah. So what's an example of a situation where you personally got to make a really substantial impact, and maybe even in the moment, maybe it even surprised you a little bit, and
Yeah.
yet you also know that would have never been possible if not for your relationship with any one of these people that you've been talking about? What's an example of a situation where you were empowered in that way?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there were many moments like that. I think without naming names or things like that, I've touched on two or three mentors or pivotal moments,
Yep.
people in my career. Um, they've all been really good from the same perspective. It's sort of, the one thing I learned from kind of all of them is they all had different skill sets, believe me, but it's sort of like point people in the right direction and then get out of their way. And so something that I've taken away from all three of those relationships, there's been moments where it's been great. There's been moments where it hasn't been good. We've definitely had some bumps in the road.
Sure.
But what I've learned for myself as a leader, because we now have layers of leadership, that support the businesses that we built and that support me. And what I've learned has been the most effective is first you got to find good people, but point them in the right direction and then get out of their way because oftentimes those people they've got ideas, they've got capacity, they've got skill sets and knowledge, and when you let them apply it in the way that they know how, with a little bit of direction, they can do things that far exceed anything that you could possibly imagine doing for yourself.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what we have today comes from the fact that I'm surrounded and supported by really, really great people that I try my best to stay out of their way, and that works out more often than not. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a great example. What a great example. So, well, for anyone listening to this that might be thinking, man, Kev, man, what a great guy is. I love the way Jason shows up. I really appreciate some of the stuff he's shared. Is there any website, any resources we can share with folks?
yeah, 100%. I'm doing a little bit of introspective work right now myself, Kevin. I actually wrote a book recently
Oh, wow.
and made it available for free to download off my site. It's called Dependency Design. So you can find it at dependencydesign.com.
Okay.
And it's a PDF. It's a 15-minute read. As one day I might write a full book. If I ever get there, this will be the intro to that full book. But what it does is it talks about how as founders we often end up building a business that we think is supposed to give us freedom, but we get it ends up being heavy, and we end up feeling like we're trapped by it. And I'm doing some personal exploration to try to figure out how you can kind of like rise above the business and really let the business sort of run itself so that you can have that freedom. It's not an easy thing to do, but I share some of my thoughts in that book. So,
Very
if
good.
anybody wants it, go check it out. It's free, like I said. Enjoy it. So,
Well, and if you're listening to this, the link to that website is right below in the show notes, so we've got it handy there for you and stuff. Jason, any last thing that you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
no, it's great. I love what you're doing with the show, Kevin. Very relationship based, very people based, and I'm just glad that you invited me on and we had the opportunity to chat.
Same, same. I really appreciate you taking the time to have the conversation today, Jason, and I'm excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of folks. So thank you so much as well.
Same. Thanks, Kevin.